I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things, promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop, give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire, I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Monday and we are going to start looking at our redraft rankings. We also have a couple of pieces of news. But first, Dennis, how was the Fantasy Expo?
Well, before I go there, I'm going to try something real quick because let's see if it's my microphone not being the correct one, and that's what's picking you up and causing the echo. So let me try something. Now you talk. Let's see. Unmute. All right, that's not good. All right, let's try this one now. Do I echo? Going? Yep, still echoing. One last one. Am I still echoing? Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm echoing still. All right. Well, on to the Fantasy Football Roundtable. It was a phenomenal weekend. I got in Friday, and Friday night there's always the big bash out on Centennial Plaza. Cornhole, DJs, food, big giant screen playing the games. Well, I had to go back to the house we rented to do our show on Friday. And while I was doing the show, the sky opened up and started pouring like it was the floods. So needless to say, we didn't go back out. We stayed in for the rest of the night. So we didn't get in too much trouble. Saturday, it was draft night out. They have a big draft going on. And then they also had the Kings Classic drafts going on at the stadium. Some of the biggest names in the industry drafting. Phenomenal. You could go in, walk around the Hall of Fame, watch them doing their drafts. They did a 14-team snake draft. Then they did a 14-team auction draft. They had the inaugural Queens Classic draft, all women, 14 teams. They started a Kings Classic Dynasty League. And so the rookie draft was going on Saturday. So it was a lot of stuff going on. Saturday afternoon, ended up with the flag football tournament, won by, not surprisingly, Dez Bryant's team. With Dez at quarterback, though, he didn't play wide receiver. He played quarterback. Do you know Dez was a lefty? A lot of people didn't know that either. So Dez Bryant's team won the flag football tournament. There was a nice get-together that evening at the stadium. Lots of glad-handing and baby shaking. It was just catching up with people and meeting new people in the industry. Sunday was the actual expo. That kicked off at 10 o'clock. 4 stages going on with different panels and different speakers and people debuting new products. About 60 booths, I think, from different vendors. It was Sirius XM broadcasting there. Better Sports Network was there. It was a hell of a good time. And there were just so many people just so happy to be together, talking fantasy football, meeting new people. Had a nice sit down with the FSWA Hall of Famer Greg Kellogg. And we just talked. That dude loves him some IDP, let me tell you.
Sorry, wouldn't let me out. It does sound like it was a lot of fun. It's been a crazy weekend for football games. We had our first set of games too, and then today we finally got news. Dalvin Cook's tour through the AFC East has mercifully come to an end, as it looks like he's signing with the Jets. And Ezekiel Elliott tweeted that he's signing with the Patriots. I haven't seen a confirmation, but Dennis, presuming both those moves happen, how does that hit you for fantasy?
So it looks like Zeke's signing has been confirmed by Rappaport, among others. He's going to be a goal line back, and he's going to help to keep Ramondre Stevenson fresh. Stevenson did wear down last season, so I don't think Zeke is going to have a ton of standalone value. But if it turns out that he ends up being a touchdown vulture, then he may be a flex-worthy play. I feel like he's probably, a running back 4 at best going into the season. He's a veteran presence on a team that has some young guys. What Ramondre, I think, is going into year 3. Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong going into year 2. J.J. Taylor's been around a few seasons, but he's pretty much a receiving guy. So it's a young team in general. Zeke will provide some veteran leadership. He'll, when he's on the field, he's going to do the right thing. He's going to be in the right place. His days of breaking off long runs like the glory days are well in the past. So I think it's a good fit from a real football standpoint. Probably knock Stevenson from a mid-ish, 6 to 8 RB1 down to maybe somewhere between 10 to 12, maybe even as low as 14, depending on how many touchdowns Zeke takes away from him. The thing is Ramondre's not a little guy himself. So I don't know that it's going to take that many. Zeke will take some. They're going to want to keep Ramondre fresh. So if they make a playoff run, they've got him fresh. So I like the signing. It's a decent contract for Zeke, up to $6 million. But it is only for 1 year. And I think at this stage of his career, he's going to be getting 1-year contracts. The other one, Dalvin has been on tour and visiting the AFC East like it's his second home. You'd think he was born there instead of Tallahassee. So to see the AFC North, East, makes a lot of sense for him in New York. They brought in Aaron Rodgers. They clearly want to win now. I don't think it says anything about Breece Hall that we didn't know. So to me, it feels like a team that says, look, we want to insulate ourselves against losing a running back like we did last year. We've got a quarterback that doesn't have a wide window to win. We've got an outstanding wide receiver, a great young running back. Now we bring in a couple veterans and Dalvin Cook, Aaron Rodgers. $8.6 million is probably that's a good contract for free agent running back of his age, I think. What's it mean for fantasy? I feel like Breece and Dalvin probably are both top 30 backs, but I don't know if they're more than. It'll be interesting to see how they split the time, because they both can run the ball inside well, and they both catch the ball very well. So, they don't necessarily have complementary skills.
Yeah, I think it probably tells you too that, we haven't heard a lot about Breece Hall's recovery, and, a lot of the guys who are coming back from injury, where they're at, they give reports. It's been very kind of cryptic. And, I think they got the sense that maybe Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter weren't their A option if Breece Hall isn't ready to go. So it makes a little bit of sense for the moves that they're trying to do. And I kind of agree with you about Zeke. I think people are really worried about the impact it's going to have on Stevenson. I'm not as worried because last year when Zeke was the starter in Dallas, Tony Pollard was still running back 8 for the season. I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be fine. It feels like they looked around and decided that none of the guys they had behind Ramondre left them as excited as Damian Harris from last year. So they're kind of trying to get that replacement in there. Another piece of running back news, Kendre Miller came up with an injury in the preseason. We saw the Saints kick the tires with Kareem Hunt before, but didn't get a deal done. Do you think they try to go back to him now?
Yeah, I think they do. They've got Jamal. They've got a couple other veteran depth players, but for the most part, I think they're gonna bring him back. If they miss out, do they go for Lenny? Probably not. I think they'll look for some other veteran that isn't going to want as much playing time. It's going to be interesting to see what market there is for Fournette. There seems to be a little bit of a market for Kareem Hunt. He's going up to Minnesota. He feels like there's a market because he's not signing with. Clearly, a couple teams have made him offers, and he's deciding to wait because he thinks he can get more money. So, it feels like he's probably turning down $1 million deals in hopes of getting a $2 million deal, or maybe he's trying to squeeze out a 2-year, $3.5 million deal. And mostly teams just want to do the $1 million with a club option for a second year or something.
Yeah. Well, and plus they'll have Kamara coming back and they still have Jamal Williams. So we'll see kind of how that one all shakes out. Probably most disappointing for those that picked up Kendre in their rookie drafts, hoping for a big, at least first few weeks. It went from a 6-game suspension maybe to a 3-game suspension to Jamal Williams to your boy's got a knee injury. On happier news for running backs, Jonathan Taylor appears to be returning to Colts camp. Is that a promising sign for you?
I don't know if you saw the James Harden, Daryl Morey rift that's going on in the NBA. It kind of feels like I expect Jonathan Taylor anytime to go. Who's the GM in Indy again? Is it Pace?
No, I forget that. I think they changed. Let me look it up.
But I just feel like
I think it's Chris Ballard.
Chris Ballard. So I feel like it's we're just about to the point where Jonathan Taylor says Chris Ballard is a liar and I'll never play on any team that has Chris Ballard in the front office, which is what James Harden did to the Sixers. So. It's a good sign that he's back, that he's in camp. He's done rehabbing on his own. He still wants a new contract. Unfortunately, the way the CBA is set up, he's not in a position to really do anything. If they made the fines, they can't just waive the fines when they come back now. So he's kind of over a barrel. He's going to have to essentially play. So maybe he'll be disgruntled, but he'll play. We'll see how it goes. If he going out and purposely playing shitty isn't going to help him get a new contract, I don't think so. I think it's good news that Taylor's in camp. Let's let him get fully healthy going into the season.
Yeah, it certainly makes me more hopeful as well. Last piece of news, they say J.K. Dobbins is 100% healthy. I've been excited potentially about what he could do this year. I know you were too, Dennis. Is this good news for you?
Very good news for me. So Dobbins, they took him off the PUP list today. He's back at practice. There's still a little question about is he holding in because he wants a new contract as well. So I think Dobbins is he'll come back. It just doesn't. I know that Le'Veon Bell held out, and there's still that chance that some players are gonna not play. Bell, really the only one in the position to do that right now is Josh Jacobs because he didn't sign his franchise tag. But everybody else is, once practices start and games start, they lose a significant amount of money to fines that can't be waived. So Dobbins will be back. He's going to go in. He's going to play. He's going to be the RB1 in Baltimore. I'm not too worried about things now, just so long as he's healthy. Let's get going.
All right. Well, today we are going to go over our top 25 redraft rankings, which means the guys we think are going to finish top 25 this year. So this will be a fun one if you like to bookmark such things to come back to in January and see how close we came. And you know what, Dennis, I'm going to let you kick off. Why don't you give us your number 1 to 6?
Well, hold on. My thing closed out. I got it back. So my 1 to 6 quarterbacks. So how can you go anywhere besides Patrick Mahomes? You know, at some point, we just have to accept that he's likely to be the guy every year. We've seen him do it with a stud tight end and a stud wide receiver, and then a stud tight end and no stud wide receivers. I think he's the best quarterback in the game, and he's the best fantasy quarterback. I've got Patrick Mahomes at number 1. Here's where I went a little off the reservation, I think. I got Jalen Hurts at number 2. I know he lost his OC in Steichen, and that's probably the biggest thing going against him. But he's an excellent runner with a nose for the end zone, and so that's going to give him a pretty high floor. And when you've got A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert as your top 3 receiving options, I think you're in a great position to take the next step. He's going into, I think, his 4th year now. Maybe it's his 3rd year. But he's developed into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So I've got Jalen Hurts in that rushing floor at number 2. Number 3, I got Josh Allen. I like Allen a lot. He probably has as good or maybe even a better rushing floor than Jalen Hurts, but his weapons aren't quite as top notch. You know, he's got Stephon Diggs, who ranks up there as good or better than A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. But his number 2 is the enigma known as Gabe Davis. And while I think Davis is probably going to have his best year this year, they didn't go out and try to replace him. And I get it. They drafted Dalton Kincaid. But I think in most measures of receiving ability, I think Davis is better than Kincaid in pretty much every measure. He just has been inconsistent over the first few years. And to think that a rookie tight end is going to come in and not be inconsistent is a little bit naive. They also have Dawson Knox. James Cook is a really good threat out of the backfield, and it looks like he's going to be leading the way on the ground along with Josh Allen. So I like Allen. He's got a high floor, great passing attack there. Number 4, I've got Joe Burrow. Cincinnati has weapons galore. Their offensive line is improving and their defense is improving, but it's still poor enough that they have to get in a lot of shootouts. So Cincinnati racks up a ton of points. Burrow throws for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. I've got Burrow checking in at number 4. And at number 5, I've got Josh Herbert. So this is one of those things where we like to talk a lot about quarterback, head coach, offensive coordinator in their 2nd year, prime for takeoff. Well, in Los Angeles, they've got Kellen Moore in his 1st year. I think Kellen Moore saves what's the head coach's name? Just escaped me. I just tried to call him Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, but he's neither one of those.
Yeah, Brandon Staley.
So I think that Kellen Moore comes in and saves Staley's job next year, and going into next year will be a great season to throw Herbert up as your QB1 for the season. So my top 5: Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert. Number 6, I'm looking for a bounce back from Lamar Jackson, another high floor guy. They've invested in the passing game. They've got Mark Andrews back and J.K. Dobbins. They also have brought in another a new offensive coordinator. After years of the rush king Greg Roman, now they've got Todd Monken, who wasn't Monken down there for Jameis's 30-30 season in Tampa. So he knows how to use the wide receivers. They got Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, OBJ, Isaiah Likely, and Mark Andrews at the tight end position. So they've got some weapons. So I've got Lamar Jackson at number 6.
Yeah, I figured we do the top 12 in 2 halves. So my top 6, you said who goes against Patrick Mahomes. Well, I guess this guy. I just to give you a sneak peek for when we get to some picks, I'm all in on the Bengals this year. So I have Joe Burrow at number 1. We saw Patrick Mahomes do it last year by throwing 5,000 yards and like 40 or 50 touchdowns. I think the same thing could happen to Burrow, even though he's not a big runner. I have Josh Allen too, kind of because of the running. Patrick Mahomes, I couldn't justify having any lower than 3rd. Jalen Hurts, I have at 4th. He was QB3 last year. I think he's going to be pretty good again. And then I have Justin Herbert at 5. So we have essentially the same top 5 for a lot of the same reasons. I just have a slightly different order. Pulling Burrow and Allen up a little bit over Mahomes and Hurts, but who knows what could happen. But at 6, I think I differ from you a lot. I have Tua there. I thought he was tracking to have a really great season last year. Then that injury bug kind of bit him. I love his top 2 receivers. I think if he can stay healthy, he's a big reason why I think Miami could make a big playoff push. So for the bottom half of my top 12, I'll go first and then I'll let Dennis finish up and then we'll have a special question. But at 7, I have Trevor Lawrence. I loved what he did last year. I think it was QB8 last year. I think he's going to be just as strong again this year. At 8, I have Deshaun Watson. He's, in some ways to me, one of the harder ones to rank, but he's what I have there at 8. We've seen him have top 5 seasons before. I think he has some decent weapons in Cleveland. I think he'll have a good bounce back season. Dak was QB 18 last year largely because of injuries. I have him back up at QB 9. I think they're going to really want to throw the ball. They have those 3 good receivers. At 10, I have Lamar Jackson. He's a guy that could go much higher. I don't disagree with you making a case for him at 6. A little bit of the injury risk scares me, so I have him down a little bit further. At 11, I have Justin Fields. Hopefully he can take a little bit of a step up as a passer, but his rushing numbers were strong enough last year to have him be a QB1. And then last slot as my QB1, I have Jared Goff as QB12. I am Detroit, another team that I am very bullish on. He was QB10 last year, so it's not out of the realm of possibility, especially since hopefully he'll get a bigger contribution from Jameson Williams, has a new tight end toy in Sam Laporta, got Marvin Jones back to give him a veteran, and of course has Amon-Ra St. Brown and the explosive Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. So that is the rest of my top 12. Dennis, why don't you give us your 7 to 12? And then I will let you tell us which guy in your top 12 has you the most nervous.
So that's pretty ballsy on Tua. I think
the kids say go big or go home.
Yeah. I think it's in the range of outcomes, but I don't know. It's hard to play against that. I don't know. I just feel like they may run surprise a little more than we expect. They're obviously not going to throw to the tight end. So I think that's pretty ballsy too at 6. So my number 7, I have Justin Fields. I feel like he's ready to take another step. He was QB 3 or 4 last year, 5. And I think he's going to have a significant increase in his passing yards. No, I'm not going goo gaga over his 3 for 3 for 2 touchdowns in the preseason game. A couple of those throws, his receivers did what your receivers are supposed to do. They made the quarterback look good. So you take it. He did. He had I think he had a negative ADOT throwing those passes, but the players did what they're supposed to. I think Fields is going to do. So for me, the screen pass was my favorite throw he made that day. And it's because he got pressure. He had to run, but he didn't look to run away. He looked for somebody to throw to, and he found Herbert. Now, Herbert just made a great play after he caught the pass. But Fields didn't just tuck it and run when he saw he could get 15 or 20 yards. He still passed the ball. So I've got Fields at number 7. Trevor Lawrence at 8. I feel like that's his floor. but right now I'm not. I just didn't feel like I could put him any higher. But if he finished lower than 8 this year, it would probably surprise me. So if he finished at 2 or 3, it wouldn't surprise me as much as if he finished at 10, QB 10. I have Deshaun Watson at 9. Shaking off the rust makes me a little nervous. I know he's a quality guy, quality quarterback, so-so guy. They've got Amari, they've got Tillman, who's looking good, Elijah Moore, David Njoku, and Nick Chubb. And I know they changed OCs, but it wouldn't be the first time we saw Stefanski turtle up when the things get nervous. And so while I want to buy into Deshaun Watson, there's a little piece of me that thinks, at any point, Stefanski goes, hey, defense and running the ball. And, we go from having 35 to 38 passes a game to 27 passes a game, which, is what we're hoping for Justin Fields is 27. But still, it's not what we're hoping for from Deshaun Watson. At 10, I do have Tua at 10. I've got him at the back end of the top 10 there. He's got some great weapons there. I'm not sold on their depth, really, and it looks like they want to run the ball with their committee backfield as much as they can. So, they've got a very narrow funnel in the passing game. It's basically 2 guys, and then a few other people will make a play here and there. So I think that makes me nervous that it might limit Tua's opportunity if they're not efficient with getting the ball downfield. Now they've shown a propensity to do that. We'll have to wait and see if it happens again this year. I have Dak at number 11. I think Dak is moving from is he going to become great or just stay really good to moving from is he really good or is he just going to be pretty good stage of his career. So I think he's got a few more highly productive seasons, but I think we're past the point where Dak can elevate a team. He's got some good weapons with CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. I like Michael Gallup. Tony Pollard's a really good running back. Jake Ferguson flashed some last year as a tight end, and they like Luke Schoonmaker. They just restructured, re-signed Zach Martin, so he's back. I think he's a 6-time All-Pro guard. So that's definitely going to be a big benefit. So I've got Prescott at number 11 and got old Kirky Cousins at number 12. Sometimes they want to run the ball more, throw the ball more. They're moving away from, the Dalvin Cook offense. O'Connell's going to throw it more. They got Hockenson. They've got Justin Jefferson. They brought in Jordan Addison, who I like a lot. KJ Osborne showed pretty well last year as a wide receiver 3. So I think they've got a lot of weapons. They're going to pass the ball pretty good. So I like Kirk to be QB 12.
So I will say Tua is also my guy that I have in the top 12 that makes me the most nervous. But if you were looking at the stats from last year, the difference between QB6 and QB10 was 24 points. Tua also essentially only played in 12 games because he got knocked out right at the beginning of his 13th start, and he was only 80 points off of QB6. Apparently,
my guy that makes me nervous, is probably Deshaun Watson. I highlighted 3 guys, Fields, Tua, and Watson, for various reasons. And I think Watson is the one that makes me the most nervous. Because he's got to come back from being off. And there's that Cleveland Browns fan in me that, like I said, sees Stefanski kind of turtle up and get conservative. And if you're trying to score fantasy points from quarterback, handing it off to the best running back in the game doesn't score a lot of quarterback fantasy points. So I like it. Amari Cooper is a phenomenal route runner. He's 29 years old now. He's still in his prime. He's going to be very productive. Elijah Moore has looked great in training camp. He's dinged up a little bit. We'll see if he can make it back and stay healthy. He's not an overly big guy. I feel like Cedric Tillman is a guy from a dynasty perspective after seeing him in these last couple preseason games. Tillman's a guy I'm looking forward to kind of grab, throw on my taxi squad, and get ready for next year when they move on from Amari Cooper. But yeah, Watson is the guy that makes me the most nervous in the top 12.
All right, so why don't you give the people your number 13 to 18, which should be your first 6 of QB2 range.
Is that what they want? I'm giving the people what they want with my 13 to 18. All right. So at 13, I've got Geno Smith. This is probably a little high, but as I look at his passing, he again, another guy with like Deshaun Watson that plays for a coach that likes to turtle it up and run the ball. But he's got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and a couple competent tight ends in Will Dissly and Noah Fant. They're probably not superstars, but they're competent. They can make plays when they need to. Not super fantasy relevant. But Metcalf, Lockett, probably top 15 for Metcalf, probably top 10 for Metcalf maybe. And Lockett top 24. I could see Njigba being a wide receiver 3 pretty comfortably if they pass the ball enough. So I like Geno. He's pretty mobile, but he doesn't look to run. He's not going to get you a lot of fantasy points on the ground. But I think he's in a position to continue his comeback that he had last year. At 14, I've got Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are all in. I think they're going for the Super Bowl. Part of me says they looked at what LA did and they said, you know what? If you were to ask Sean McVay, would you change anything that you did to win that Super Bowl? McVay would say, flip no. Hell no, not a chance. We won the Super Bowl. I'll trade those son of a guns. I'll get, F them picks. So they've got Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. Alan Lazard's a Jag. He's there to help teach the defense, teach the offense. Randall Cobb, same thing. I think a sneaky play there is actually Tyler Conklin for Aaron Rodgers. But in Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, he's got 2 really good receiving backs. So there's going to be some decent weapons in New York. He's got his MVS with Mecole Hardman. So you got that fast guy that you just throw it far, throw it long, and let him run under it. Yeah, he'll catch some of them. Some of them he won't, but he's going to catch some of them because he's big and fast. So I got Aaron Rodgers at 14, Daniel Jones at 15. I could see Jones squeaking into the top 12, but their wide receiver group is abysmal. They need people to kind of play over their head and establish themselves right now, like all of their wide receivers. Hodgins, Darius Slayton, who's the other cat I'm thinking? Paris Campbell. They're running as their top 3 right now. Jalen Hyatt's right now, he's kind of playing a one-trick pony deep threat role, but they're also working him a little bit out of the slot. Hyatt does something that nobody else on the team does, which is just run fast. That used to be Darius Slayton's role, but 5 years into the NFL now, he's slowed down probably a half a step. Darren Waller's, he's the top receiving threat in New York, and I know that Mahomes does it with Kelsey as the top threat. I don't know that Jones can get away with Waller being his top threat. Jones has got some good mobility. I felt like they were a year early last year in how they played and making the playoffs. That being said, I feel like playing over their head last year is going to kind of set them up to be flat this year. So I got Daniel Jones at 15. I got Russ bouncing back a little bit at 16. I like the weapons he has and Judy and Sutton, Troutman and the other cat, Alberto. They've got some players there. Like Marvin Mims a lot due to the Hamler and Tim Patrick injuries. Mims has an opportunity to step into the wide receiver 3 role. And if either of the other 2 guys screw up, he could move into the top 2. Javonte Williams looks to be coming back strong at the running back position. So I like what they did there. Samaje Perine is a Jag, but he's consistent and he's good in pass protection. So I have Russell Wilson at 16, Jared Goff at 17. I don't think Goff is QB 12. He's probably a little better than QB 17. But Jameson Williams does make me a little bit nervous. This is the second time there's been an issue. First, he had the injury. Then now he's got the gambling. He hasn't been efficient even in the preseason when he's getting a lot of snaps either. So he is fast. He's a decent route runner, but he's got some maturing to do. So that makes me a little bit nervous. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a bona fide top 12 stud. Laporta seems to have taken the starting tight end job, but rookie tight ends are, I don't think Laporta is that exceptional kind of athletic talent to warrant him being somebody you want to lean on for fantasy in his rookie year. He'll have some games, but I think it's going to end up being in the end, I think Laporta will have a decent year, good for a rookie, but I think that's going to help put Goff kind of back in his place a little bit. So I've got Goff at 17. And at 18, I've got rookie Anthony Richardson on the basis of his legs. I think he's going to take that job. They're going to let him, we've seen the formula with Justin Fields. And I think they go that route with him. They try to ease him in with pass plays that are going to work for him, that give him options. Don't try to make the field too big for him. He's got a couple big wide receivers and Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce. They both can get down the field some. The offensive line needs to continue to gel. They've got one of the best running backs in the game in Jonathan Taylor, and some youth at tight end that has to step up. Hey, man, miss you too, buddy. Yeah.
If you think Dennis has him too low, just give it a minute.
So I have Anthony Richardson at 18. Now, if Richardson finishes QB 10, will I be surprised? No. But I feel like he's going to be solidly in the teens while he learns to be an NFL quarterback. The big difference, I think, one of the big differences between him and Fields is that Fields played twice as many college games as Anthony Richardson in just as tough a conference on a team that, while better surrounding talent, played with a ton more pressure on their shoulders. Richardson is just getting into that right now. I think he's going to be good. I have 2 dynasty leagues where I had the 101 and Superflex leagues in 2 teams that were rebuilding. And in both leagues, I traded back from the 101 to the 102 because Bijan didn't fit my team. And I took Anthony Richardson in both of those cases because I think long-term, could he bomb? Yes, he could. But I think I've got 10 years of Richardson versus 5 to 6 years of Bijan. Now, Bijan could be more or less Richardson too. But I wanted to take the risk on Richardson, but I couldn't stay at 101 and not draft Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I had super flex leagues. There were a couple of times when I had the high pick to grab a quarterback that I took young, but there were a couple of times I took Richardson too, I think, depending on the situation. For me at 13, I have Kirk Cousins. If he finished in the top 12, I wouldn't be shocked. He was QB7 last year. At 14, despite what I said before, and I still stand by, there is no team I will root harder against than the Jets. Episode 1 of Hard Knocks just confirmed that for me. But I have Aaron Rodgers at 14, and I actually think the Jets are going to make some kind of a playoff run just to ruin my year. At 15, I have Daniel Jones, so it could be a good year for New York quarterbacks. At 16, I also have Russell Wilson. You said it's a bounce back. He actually was QB 16 last year, so I guess it's a bounce even. But as long as Denver actually wins games
earlier in it.
As long as Denver wins games, I'm going to be fine. 17, I have Geno Smith. He was QB6 last year. Looked really good at the beginning, kind of faded down the stretch. I'm leaning more into that fading down the stretch. They're another team I think wants to run the ball a lot. And then at 18, my highest rookie, I have Bryce Young. I like Frank Reich as a quarterback developer. Hopefully Matt's not still listening because that'll probably drive him over the wall. But I like Bryce Young. I think he was the number one draft pick for a reason. I think he's probably a little more ready for the pro game than Anthony Richardson. I don't have Richardson a ton lower, but um, I have Bryce Young there at 18. The remainder of mine to get to 25. At 19, I have Brock Purdy. I've brought him a lot up because it seems like A, he's healthy, and B, San Francisco is pretty locked in. Number 20, I know you're nowhere in this range, but I have Desmond Ritter. I think Matt and I were a little bit closer on this. I think he has potential. I kind of like Atlanta this year. They're a team that I like in that NFC South. So I've got him up there. I hope he has a heck of a year. At 21, I have Anthony Richardson. I think his legs will help him. I'm not as set on what their passing offense is going to be or their offense in general. And they're another team that could, it's a great sign Jonathan Taylor's back. They could lean heavily into running the ball. At 22, I have Mac Jones. He's been in this range pretty much every year. I think he will be fine and will be in about that range. At number 23, I'm glad that I saw your side because I completely did not realize I had forgotten Kenny Pickett existed. So I have put him back in there. I think he will be fine, but I don't think he's going to be spectacular either. Another team that could run. Number 24 and 25 for me are a couple of veterans that I felt like were a little hard to rank. I have Derek Carr at 24. We've seen him do a lot better, but New Orleans does not have an exceptional set of passing weapons beyond Chris Olave. They have a lot of questions. I like Juwan Johnson, but I don't know. And then 25, Matthew Stafford. I have questions about his health. I also have questions a little bit about the depth chart for the Rams. Cooper Kupp's already been ailing a little bit, but Kupp's kind of all they have. If there was one guy in the 20 to 25 range that I thought could surprise us all and make a leap, I am going to go with Richardson because you never know if they can have that explosive running. Last year, Justin Fields was not incredible as a passer, but he was nearly all world as a rusher and finished as quarterback 6. There is a scenario where that could happen for Richardson. So I have him at 21. I feel safer there, but I think he has some explosive upside. So Dennis, what are your number 19 to 25 and who's one guy in that range you think could make an explosive leap?
So at 19, I've got Kenny Pickett. And that team just seems to be coming together. The hype on George Pickens is probably a little bit overblown. But I do think that Calvin Austin and Allen Robinson really give that team enough depth to make them worrisome to other defenses. Freiermuth is good on consistent at tight end. I don't think he's a super explosive guy, and he's not going to be prone to big games, but he's going to be consistent. And then Deontay Johnson is really, really good, and he's the wide receiver 1 there. He's going to bounce back with touchdowns. He's probably going to get 6 touchdowns this year, which is essentially up until last year has been his career average, 6 touchdowns a year. Deontay Johnson has been going in drafts as in like wide receiver 40s, 44, 40s. It's like, to me, that's just bonkers. It's just bonkers. I think Deontay Johnson is a top 30, maybe top 24 wide receiver this year. I think he's going to do great. Are they going to run it? Yeah, probably. You've got Najee Harris. Of course you're going to run it some. But Pickett's looked pretty good, and he's doing the things that allow a quarterback to take the next step. Second-year quarterback, second year with the same head coach, with the same offensive coordinator. And yes, I get that it's Matt Canada, and by and large, we all hate that guy's offense. But at QB 19, I think Pickett's set up to be successful. I think he'll have. I could see him going 3,400 yards and maybe 22 touchdowns. To me, that seems like a decent year for him. He also is pretty mobile, so he's got some moxie. I like Kenny Pickett at 19. At 20, I've got Derek Carr, New Orleans. I just feel like there's a couple weapons there that are going to elevate him. We're beyond the point of him being able to elevate others. I could see him probably being a guy that moves down a little bit. I could be high on him, is what I'm saying. But I love Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson to the point that I'm maybe they've got me given me blinders. Matthew Stafford at 21. It's Cooper Kupp and all you others, and those others are Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee and Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. Once we get past Kupp's 175 targets, what is that offense really going to be? Stafford's got the back issue. He's getting up there in years, and it just, as much as I'm happy that he got his Super Bowl ring, and I'm happy for all the years that he gave Detroit. I think we're watching the sunset on his career. Number 22, I've got Brock Purdy. He's got a lot of good weapons. I'm not necessarily investing in Purdy too much. I'm a little nervous. He didn't have a terrific arm to begin with, but he seems to really fit the offense. And as we've been kind of watching preseason and the practice reports and watching the games, it doesn't look like Trey Lance is, I think if Shanahan could rewind this whole thing 3 years ago, he would go ahead and take Mac Jones at number 3 if he had it to do over. So I got Brock Purdy at 20, Jordan Love at 23. Jordan Love could be top 12 next year based on what he does this year. He's got all first and second year receivers and tight ends. It's a team that's clearly in transition. How's he going to play is the real question. He's had time to sit and get into the system. He knows the system that he's playing in. He's been there a long time now. It's put up or shut up time for him. And we're just going to have to see if he can rise to the occasion. I got Desmond Ridder at 24. Ritter's got good weapons around him with Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Mac Hollins is a good wide receiver too that can benefit the running game. Bijan Robinson is a really good receiver out of the backfield. So there are some things there. He's mobile enough to keep plays live and to get points with his legs. So if the offensive line can develop a little bit and keep it together for Ridder, then I think he can overcome his accuracy issues that have kind of plagued him throughout his career to a point. For a long time, the mantra was, oh, you're either accurate or you're not. And if you come to the NFL not accurate, you don't just magically become accurate. And then Josh Allen happened. And so now we're all trying to find that, like, can somebody do that again? Can somebody make a 9-point jump in their completion percentage while maintaining their ADOT besides Josh Allen? Is it ever gonna happen again? We'll see. I don't think we're gonna see quite that, but I think if Ridder can get into the 63, 64, 65% completion rate, he's got big guys with big arms, long arms to be able to do it. So I've got Ridder at 24. I was really torn at 25. There are a lot of guys I wanted to put there. CJ Stroud, Sam Howell, heck, even Ryan Tannehill, because I think Tannehill is going to be sneaky good this year. But at 25, I got Bryce Young. I just think what really split it for me with Young and CJ Stroud, I think their weapons are fairly even. Pierce and Miles Sanders at the running back are pretty even. The wide receivers, they're just a combination of young guys with potential and old guys that used to be. So we'll see what happens there. But ultimately, I think I just believe a little more in the Frank Reich offense than I do the Bobby Slowick offense, because I haven't seen a Bobby Slowick offense before. This is the first Bobby Slowick offense. He's been on offensive staffs that have done well, but they haven't been his teams. So in the end, that let me give the edge a little bit to Bryce Young at 25. I have one guy that is it outside the top 25 that might make a hit? Is that what I'm looking for?
So first, one that's in that range that you think could end up surprising and dropping in the top 12, and then one that's not in your top 25 that could make it in.
So one guy I think that could pop up from outside the top 20 and push for the top 12 is honestly, I think it could be Jordan Love. He's mobile enough that I think he's going to end up running a little bit. I don't. Did you see the David Bakhtiari quote the other day? And somebody was talking about, well, the offense didn't change, but it looks like Jordan Love is running more. And Bakhtiari's like, yeah, it's because Aaron Rodgers was slow as fuck. So it's Love has to have a lot of things go right, but Christian Watson is explosive. Musgrave has looked good at tight end in the preseason. Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed are looking good as wide receivers 2 and 3. And then you've got Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, a little thunder and lightning, hammer and glove there in the backfield that can do some things. So because of the years he spent on the bench behind Rodgers and playing and practicing in this offense, I think that Jordan Love is a guy that could push for that. I probably wouldn't give him much past top 12 if everything went perfect, but he's a guy that I could see getting there.
All right. And who would be your guy that's not in your top 25 that you think could sneak in there?
Honestly, it's Sam Howell. He was my guy in that class, and I like Howell a lot. And I just want to be able – I want to see him get a shot, but I feel so much like he's going to get Colt McCoy. He's just going to always be in a shitty situation on a shitty team and just – they're getting
Colt McCoy might be a starter for all of this season.
Right. But again, Colt McCoy, he's going to be a starter in Arizona with a first-year defensive head coach on a team that just got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, is happy to have 77-year-old Zach Ertz back at tight end with a whole bunch of receivers, that are 4'9". So Howell is mobile enough. Well, he's not fast. He's a good runner. He's an instinctive runner. He's got a good arm with some deep accuracy. And with Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel and Logan Thomas and Cole Turner, there are some weapons in the passing game that if the offensive line can hold up, I could see him moving up into, QB 17, maybe up to 14 even. But a lot would have to go right for him.
So if you all enjoyed that pick, my pick is Baker Mayfield. I currently have him ranked as QB 31. But if we saw Baker something like 2 or 3 years ago as Cleveland's Baker Mayfield, and that offensive line comes together, he has Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Russell Gage, and Cade Otton. Not much competition behind him. I'm not an incredible believer in Kyle Trask. So he's a guy, I don't have him in there right now, but would it surprise me if he ended up in the middle teens? It wouldn't. It would probably also mean that Tampa Bay ends up having a chance to win that division. But, Tampa Bay, another one of those teams, the quarterback situation, the team in general, almost impossible to feel good about one way or the other. But that is my guy that I am picking outside my top 25 who could end up surprising. Dennis, we had just enough football this weekend to lead people to be having withdrawals. And if they're having those withdrawals, how can they fill that football-shaped void in their hearts?
They can download this podcast. They can give us a rating and a review. Give us a 5-star rating and a review, and we may pick you to be in the listener league. We got a new listener, Just Josh. He found us through the Dynasty Nerds channel. He's going to be joining the Listener League. We still have a few more spots to go. I'm not going to feel good about Tampa Bay's quarterback situation until they sign Carson Wentz as a free agent.
My God. Dennis, we just got football back. Do you have to ruin it for everyone? Well, if you enjoyed the top 25 quarterbacks, Friday we're going to do our top 25 tight ends. Dennis probably noticed I was even playing with mine a little bit while we were up here rethinking some things. And then next week we will dive headlong into running backs, doing 26 to 50 and then 1 to 25. And then the following week we'll do wide receivers. So we're getting closer. And then pretty soon preseason is going to be over and regular football is going to be upon us. But on Friday, look for that top 25 tight ends. Until then, you guys have a wonderful week.